Zimbabwe's ruling elite has never been known for accuracy, but this time they have outdone themselves in the global theater of absurdity. Grab your popcorn, ladies and gentlemen, because this is going to make your head spin. And while you are grabbing your popcorn, please remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. Our viewership shows that we have more than 70,000 unique viewers every week. And out of those, 55,000 are returning viewers. And yet, we only have 18,000 subscribers. Please subscribe and support us. Back to our story. Wellington Masiwa, the man behind the wildly popular anti-Mnangagwa WhatsApp groups and known online as Nyokayemabhunu, has found himself at the center of a dizzying manhunt, complete with fake names, phantom court convictions, mathematically impossible ages, and a regime so allergic to criticism it will export paranoia across the borders. On the surface, they say it's about fraud. Underneath, it's about fear. Fear of a man with a smartphone and the audacity to say the government is corrupt, incompetent, and more dangerous to logic than to democracy. Let's start with the arrest. Masiwa was first picked up by the South African police on April 13, 2025, not for fraud, but for violating immigration rules. He allegedly didn't have a valid visa, a pretty routine offense that usually ends in a deportation notice or a fine. But Zimbabwe, smelling an opportunity to silence a critic, swooped in like a vulture that had finally found a dying tweet. During Masiwa's court appearance today at Randburg Magistrates Court, an international warrant of arrest was conveniently served. According to the Zimbabwean government, he has an outstanding fraud sentence of 18 months waiting for him back home. One problem: he has never been convicted of anything in any Zimbabwean court. There's no trial, no guilty verdict, no record, just a political regime that's grown too comfortable fabricating entire legal timelines out of thin air. So unless criminal charges are now being treated like civil cases where default judgments can be given in absentia without proving or defending yourself, then we all know this is an absurd assertion. But that was only the beginning. Zimbabwe's ambassadorial magicians decided to spice things up by altering Masiwa's age in ways that would make a fake passport blush. In March 2025, we reported an official Zimbabwean police notice confidently declaring that Masiwa was 42 years old. Fast forward to today, and the same government now insists he was born in 1977, which would make him 48. But according to Masiwa's actual documents, his real Zimbabwean birth certificate and national ID, he was born in 1987. That means he's 38. If your calculator is overheating, don't worry, so is ours. In just over a month, he has apparently aged 6 years, and depending on which ZANU-PF branch you ask, he may be a completely different person altogether. They have either fabricated the whole identity mismatch or they are chasing the wrong man entirely. Either way, the math doesn't add up unless you are using the same calculator that converted bond notes to US dollars. Then there is the name debacle. The Zimbabwean government, in its ever-expanding creativity, listed the suspect as Jeremiah Masiwa. That would be interesting if it wasn't completely bogus. Jeremiah is not on any legal documentation that Masiwa owns. It's not his registered name. It's a church name he received at baptism, just like other high-profile religious figures go by names like J. Israel or Hubert Angel. But now we have entered an alternate reality where the government issues warrants based on your Sunday school certificate. If you ever thought your nickname couldn't get you arrested, think again. The Zimbabwean state is officially so desperate to land a charge that they will use your confirmation name for 1998 if it sounds more convictable. Of course, all of this chaos serves a clear and sinister purpose. The government doesn't really care about immigration rules or fraudulent birth dates. What they care about is that Masiwa from the safety of South Africa had been running WhatsApp groups that routinely exposed the rot within the Mnangagwa regime. These weren't just chat groups. They were digital town squares where citizens could share unfiltered commentary, organize resistance, and name and shame the architects of Zimbabwe's suffering. That kind of open dialogue terrifies a government built on secrecy, fear, and state-controlled narratives. So, what do you do when you can't legally stop a man from speaking? You hack his accounts, plant pornographic material, and try to destroy his credibility. That's exactly what Masiwa's lawyer, Crispin Machingura, says has happened. All of Masiwa's WhatsApp groups have allegedly been hijacked and are distributing explicit content. A convenient smear campaign complete with digital fingerprints too dirty to be accidental. Okay, that part might not be 100% correct because I can testify that we are in one of the groups and there's been no pornographic materials that has been distributed in that group. However, this is a forwarded group, meaning messages were being forwarded from the main WhatsApp groups to this one. So maybe that's why it survived. And just when you thought it couldn't get more farcical, rewind to March. Another accusation suddenly emerged, allegedly that Masiwa had defrauded someone 60,000 in a dodgy tipper truck deal. No proof, no court records, no complainant marching into court, just a vague accusation perfectly timed to coincide with his rising influence. The pattern here is unmistakable. Create a fog of charges, drown the truth in noise, and hope no one notices the political motive behind the entire charade. It's a playbook perfected under Mugabe and now performed on international stages by Mnangagwa's disciples. The court in Randburg has postponed Masiwa's case to 9 March 2025, buying a little more time for what could either be a diplomatic embarrassment for Zimbabwe or a human rights test for South Africa. If South Africa goes through with the extradition, they will be complicit in sending a man to face charges for crimes that don't exist, based on documents that are fake, names that aren't his, and birth dates chosen from a lucky dip, all because he dared to speak against a regime that has turned governance into a family business and democracy into a catchphrase for donor funds. Regardless of whether he is found wanting on the immigration charges or not, the South African government has to consider the human rights implications Nyokayemabhunu is going to face for criticizing the government of Zimbabwe. In South Africa, it is not a crime to criticize a government that you think is failing. And therefore, South Africa should look at it as a human rights issue rather than a criminal issue. At one point, South Africans lived in exile because probably they had said something against the government, the apartheid government of South Africa. The countries in which they lived never handed them over to the South African government. This is the time for South Africa to return the favor. This is the time for ANC to draw the line between human rights protection and brotherhood. Zimbabwe is not trying to bring back a fraudster. It's trying to cage a voice that dared to tell its people that they deserve better. A voice that didn't wait for elections or conferences, but simply logged onto WhatsApp and started talking. And for that, the regime is willing to risk international shame, legal acrobatics, and the most brazen assault on logic ever recorded outside of a Banana Republic courtroom. Before we conclude, let's hear a comment from one of the participants in one of Nyokayemabhunu's WhatsApp groups.
Makadi muri yeZimbabwe, mufaro wedu kusangana masikati anhasi musi wa30 April. Tinoda kutenda muri yese iri pano nemaadmin ese anenge achigoverana nesu nekusimbisana nesu parwendo rwerevolution yatiri kufamba nayo. Tinoziva munenge muchibvunza kuti vari kupi makomrades aya wasiri kuuya vachiti update zuva nezuva. Tinenge tiripo, tinouya tichikuupdate hai panenge paine update iri necessary. Right, sekuziva kwenyu pane macirculations aiitika, comrade wenyu Nyokayemabhunu vanga vachitarisirwa kupinda mukoti nhasi zvinova zvaitika. Stage yakapedzisira kuitwa yanga iri yekusenda madocuments avo maIDs to the embassy of Zimbabwe yeku-South Africa kuti iite verify identity kuti uyu shuwa munhu ndiye ari mwana wekuZimbabwe. Chatikatyamadza nhasi ndechekuti embassy of Zimbabwe in South Africa is now involved in political persecution of Zimbabweans who are running away from the evil Zviganandas, and the situation iri muZimbabwe iri very terrifying. They notified the government of Zimbabwe of the application by the South African court to verify the identity of Comrade Nyokayemabhunu. When they did that, they played an accomplice and created a fake ID and birth certificate for Comrade Nyokayemabhunu, which they presented to the court that this is the Nyokayemabhunu which we know in Zimbabwe. The birth certificate and the identity of Comrade Nyokayemabhunu created by Zvigananda through the accomplice of the Zimbabwean embassy in South Africa was presenting Comrade Nyokayemabhunu using his prophetic name Jeremiah, which doesn't even exist in any identity document. Comrade Nyokayemabhunu is well known as Jeremiah Masiwa. Jeremiah Masiwa is a church name. It's not an identity name. That name never existed on any birth certificate or ID in Zimbabwe. That was the fake documentation which was presented and confirmed by the embassy that this is the person which we have in Zimbabwe, and they used his photo. Whilst presenting such a thing, they are saying he ran away from Zimbabwe after a court case, after he was convicted of a court case for selling a stand. So we need him to be extradited to Zimbabwe so that he can save his sentence. So what happens when Interpol is given such a docket? They simply execute. But the good thing about South African law, there are no favors in South Africa. If you present a document in court, they also need to verify. So the security system around Comrade Nyokayemabhunu managed to stop the extradition and giving time for further identification document verification, because there are now two identities representing one person. One identity, the correct identity for Comrade Nyokayemabhunu, which he has, and the identity which was created this week in Zimbabwe with the name Jeremiah Masiwa and the face of Comrade Nyokayemabhunu, which is a fake identity. That's the stalemate which we are at now. So what we are seeing is the embassy of Zimbabwe in South Africa is no longer performing its purpose to serve the people of Zimbabwe. We will be in South Africa very soon. We will be back there. What is happening is they are now playing an accomplice under the influence of the Ganandas to serve their political persecution purposes. So if an embassy is no longer serving its purpose of protecting its citizens, taking care of its citizens in foreign land, it means that embassy doesn't deserve to exist. So very soon, just because of that, the embassy is now compromised. We will communicate accordingly. All Zimbabweans need to go to the embassy of Zimbabwe at a certain date and demonstrate, so that the embassy will play its fairness and keep on playing its role. All Zimbabweans are now under siege. The documentation which all the birth certificates, the passports, the identities which we have in Zimbabwe, they can easily be changed and confirmed by the embassy, and the embassy have the guts of presenting to court. They can see in the Zimbabwean system that there is Comrade Nyokayemabhunu, these documents are genuine, but they keep on bringing a fake duplicate documentation to be used for a political persecution purposes, to be presented to a court of law. We need to thank the South African government, the South African courts, the South African law for upholding the law without fear or favor. They managed to protect the comrade, and the comrade is back in safe custody again. There is no extradition which is going to happen up until this issue of political persecution through the accomplice of the embassy of Zimbabwe in South Africa is resolved. We call all Zimbabweans to remain steadfast, remain focused, remain strong. This phase will come to pass. We are complying Zimbabweans. We are loving Zimbabweans. We are focused Zimbabweans. We cannot allow the Ganandas to do the state capture to such an extent of influencing the whole embassy to approve a fake document to be an original document. Those who know Comrade Nyokayemabhunu physically, Comrade Nyokayemabhunu is not a ghost. He is a person who is well known all over Zimbabwe. He has served, he went to school. Nobody recorded in his register, like a teacher or whether be it at a college, that his name is Jeremiah Masiwa. Jeremiah is the name which he just used. It's a church name, like the name like Hubert Angel. We know Hubert Angel. We never heard Hubert Angel in Zimbabwe. He has his name Mzaniri, which we all know. But this one is his prophetic name, which he does use. If he managed to change it to the birth certificate, then that's it. But as for Comrade Nyokayemabhunu, that never happened. So we will keep on giving you updates as they come. But as it stands, we are very angry about what the embassy of Zimbabwe is doing in South Africa. Measures and protest by angry Zimbabweans will be taken. We will be advised by the command accordingly. Thank you, Zimbabwe. Mazvita tinokutendai nekuramba makamira pano. Rambai muchishare zvatete tichikupai, so that the enemy will know that their plots are well known. tinotenda Zimbabwe, ngatirambei takabatana. It's time for unit now. Things are as bad as like it has never been before. I don't know vari kuramba vachisaidha nezvigananda. It's up to you. Maybe you have your own eyes of seeing this thing which is happening in Zimbabwe. But this system is now becoming very evil to such an extent that no one is safe. God bless Zimbabwe. God bless everyone. Thank you.
So let this be a warning to all Zimbabweans in the diaspora. If you think being across the border protects you from ZANU-PF's long paranoid reach, think again. If your name trends on Twitter, they will claim you were born in 1972, say your nickname is your legal name, and sentence you for a trial that never happened. Because in this version of Zimbabwe, the truth is the only crime that matters. Subscribe to Zimwaves TV, where we age naturally, call people by their real names, and expose every dirty trick in the book before the book is rewritten by the same people who think 38, 42, and 48 are all the same number.